Hello, Barbara. How are you? How's everyone doing over here? Erev Tov. Good evening. Tonight is going to be beautiful. So there's two sheets. The printer ran out of paper. I have that. There's two of them. You can take one. You can take one. Um, you ask who else wants it. Now more of my print from the, or you can make whatever. You can make photocopies in the double sided. You go to the cop, not in there. One of my offices is broken completely. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. Anyway, cultural education, holidays. Okay, you ready, my friends? What? Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying hello. Why isn't this opening? Okay, you ready, my friends? Oh, Art is watching us online, so we can, perfect. Okay, my friends. Let's see who's watching us over here. Let's make it 100%. Chat. Okay, good evening, King. Good evening, Stephanie. Where's it? Here we go. Perfect. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Shakol niyeh b'varo. Yeah, l'chaim. Some good cold water is always a good l'chaim. Okay, my friends, you ready? Tonight's learning will be in the memory of Yitzchak Tzvi ben Yosef. His neshama should have an elevation, good things, God willing. And we keep on looking this way, which is a problem, but it's okay. Let me turn a little bit. Okay, so tonight, first of all, tonight's learning should be in the memory of Yitzchak Tzvi ben Yosef. I think I just said that, a little scattered. We are going to be learning about, when you come to the Seder, you have two kinds of people at the Seder. Some people, they want to do the Hebrew stuff as quickly as possible so they can just get to the food. And once they get to the food, that's the end of the Seder, right? There's no more reading Hebrew after that. There was a few, the printer ran out of paper. I put more paper in. It didn't get we're having, it's like I always have technological issues. It'll be the Wi-Fi now. It's the printers for the last few weeks in a row. It's having printer issues. But Michelle is making photocopies. It was printing and it ran out of paper. Then I put more paper in. It stopped connecting. Hello, Karina. Okay. So some people, they want to just get over with the Hebrew. And once they get to the food, they don't open the book again, right? And then you have those that they read every single word, like Marsha. They go every word. They don't miss a word. They don't miss anything. I told you, okay.
Page to rate of page 7.
It's not working?
There's another job that was waiting on the paper, sort of putting that job. It's kind of
That's the job that is this.
No, it's another. It's not this. It was a different job.
Okay. Was it my notes?
Yes, I think those are your notes.
Oh, so you can give me those. I mean, I have a.
Those are your notes that you said, and I just saw our statement.
Yeah. Anyway, so for those that only did the first part of the Seder, they don't even know what we're going to talk about tonight because they never read this before. But for those that do the whole Seder, one of the most powerful, strong, and not politically correct lines of the Seder is after the meal, after we do Birchat HaMazon, after we do the third glass of wine, and we do the blessing, and we thank Hashem for the meal. Now you should be able to make photocopies. Or maybe we'll go back to the other job because it was printing this too. I sent this twice, whatever. After we do, we open the door for the Od Navi, right? If you had last week's class, we gave a whole class on the fifth cup of wine and the fact that we stand up to not just say we believe in the coming of Mashiach, but to actually act upon it and do something tangible to influence that we should feel as if Mashiach is really coming. And as we read last week, that Elijah the prophet might come. If the Od Navi comes and he sees the door is locked, he'll move on. We want the door to be open for him, etc. But what do we actually read when that door is open? If we didn't talk about it at all last week, I hadn't prepared it. I didn't know. I mean, I know what it says. And then it happened to be by divine providence that I'm studying the book of Yirmiyahu, of Jeremiah, in the mornings, right? And last week on Tuesday, like the day after the class, we came to chapter 10, which is a verse that is almost verbatim what we say in Haggadah. So I decided to have to start doing more research into these verses. And tonight we're going to discuss the 4 verses that we actually say when we open up the door for Elijah the prophet. Okay? So we pour the class, call it the 5th cup of wine. The kids go to the door, we have the candle. And if you're reading the Haggadah, the candle, there's a custom that the kids bring a candle to the door. That's a custom, it's not required. But yeah, that. No, you don't take a new candle. You can't light it. I mean, you could light a candle on the Chag. You take something that's not going to spill wax and won't hurt the kids. You could light a candle from another candle on the Chag. You could, but you don't have to light a new candle. We take the existing candles, take a tray, whatever. If you have the candle, is just a custom. I guess you're opening the door, you need to give light. But if you don't have a candle, it's also fine. And we open up the door, and we read 3 verses. It's actually 4 verses, but it's a collection of 3 different places that I'm going to read together. Really, if Michelle comes back with the papers in the near future, you'll be able to read it together with her. Should we wait for her? I guess, because you guys will be able to see the paper inside, right? So there's 4 verses. The first 3 verses are. This is not even what I saved, but 1 second. Okay, whatever it is, what it is. So the first 2 verses are from chapter 79 of the book of Tehillim. And it says, Shvech chamoscha el hagoyim. Pour your wrath upon the nations that did not know you, and upon the kingdoms that did not call upon your name, since they have consumed Jacob and laid waste his habitation. Extremely strong verses, right? Let me read that again. I actually wanted to share my screen. I should have asked you guys, what do you think the verses would be? I already kind of gave it away. What do you think the verses would be when you open up the door to greet Elijah the prophet? What would you think the verses would be? Do you want brisket? Okay. Very good, Randy. Very good. Randy says, can we offer you a drink, offer you some brisket? Do you want some dessert? Okay. You would think they'd be welcoming, like the Shalom Aleichem, maybe when we have the angels come on Friday night. We sing Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharetz, right? We welcome the Shabbos angels. We welcome a song to welcome Elijah. That's what you would think it would be, right? I'm waiting for Michelle, but the verses are actually quite different. It's 2 verses that say, pour your wrath upon the nations that did not know you, and upon the kingdoms that did not call upon your name. Why should you pour your wrath upon the nations? Since they have consumed Jacob and laid waste his habitation. Okay. The next verse, verse number 3, is also from Tehillim, from the book of Psalms, chapter 69, verse 25. Pour shvach aleim zamecha. Pour out your fury upon them. V'charin apcha yasigim. And let the fierceness of your anger overtake them. And then the 4th verse says, Tirdev ba'av vatashmidem. Pursue them in anger and destroy them. Mitachas shmei Hashem, from under the heavens of the Lord. And when we left Egypt, Hashem to kill the firstborns. But now that I finished reading the verses, now you guys have the papers. But okay, here you have 4 verses. 4 verses. From 3 different places, which we just read. Thank you for making the copies. Michelle figured it out. Okay. Wow. All the way. So basically, so the Haggadah, what is Haggadah saying to us over here? Help me out, my friends. Good evening, everyone that's watching us from all over the world. Hello, Gerald. Hello, Corinne. Hello, Andrea. Hello, Laura. What is Haggadah telling us? Anyone? What are these verses saying to us? We're opening the door for Eliyahu Navi. We're opening the door for Elijah the prophet to come redeem us. Where the whole end of the pouring of the fifth cup, as we explained last week, is a cup of redemption, the cup of Mashiach. The fifth of the verses, if you remember last week, we talked about the 4 verses of redemption that we already experienced when we left Egypt. I will take you out. I'll take you as a nation. I will redeem you. But the 5th expression, vehevesi, that will bring you to the land that I swore to your forefathers, that hasn't happened yet, as we explained last week. So we pour the cup, we don't drink it, because we're looking forward to the redemption that will come, but we haven't actually experienced it yet, so therefore we don't actually drink that cup. But what we're actually reading in the text of the Haggadah is that in order for this redemption to happen, redemption can't happen as long as evil still exists. And in order for redemption to happen, in order for Eliyahu Navi to come through our open doors and be the heralder, the mevaser, the one bearing the good news that Mashiach has come, it's not enough for us to say we want Mashiach now or whatever, or some other kumbaya or nice, expression of happiness and joy and love. But the evil that exists can't just be deterred. It can't just be restrained. It can't just be held back. It needs to be destroyed. Destroyed. Yeah, I've been saying for a long time, and I didn't make this up. It's not my own personal emotion. This is what Torah tells us to do. So I want to explain this. Thank you, Steve. Teamwork between the two of you. Excellent. Now that you all have copies. Yeah. So before I get into the commentaries and explain these verses a little more, let me first just address a quick technicality, which is a very important technicality. When did these verses enter the Haggadah? See, interestingly enough, if you look in the Mishnah, in the Talmud, in Tractate Pesachim, which goes through in details a whole chapter describing how the Seder night should be done. From the beginning to the end, every step, the version, the questions, the reclining, what we say, what we don't say. These verses are not in there at all. If you look in the Jerusalem Talmud, where it talks about the 4 cups, it doesn't mention this at all. If you look in the original first versions of the Haggadah from like Rav Hai Gaon and the original books of the Siddur that we have, you don't find it at all. If you look in the Rambam's Mishnah Torah, the Rambam wrote a version of the Haggadah and of the Siddur and everything, you don't find this either. The first place where we find this text in the Haggadah is what's called the Machzor Vitri, which is a very, very important book which was written by Rav Simcha of Vitri, who was a disciple of Rashi. So you're talking about the 12th century. Rashi lived in France. One of his students made the whole Siddur, really. Machzor Vitri, which is one of the foundational texts where we find many new customs that we didn't have from before. Which means that really, when did this enter into the Jewish prayer book? 1200s, give or take 100 years. That's when we started saying these verses where God should pour out his wrath upon the nations. In the Machzor Vitri, there's actually 8 verses, not just 4. Several other verses, like from Tehillim chapter 2, that you should break them with a rod of iron, etc. But eventually got shortened down to 4, and these are the 4 verses that we say. Okay. And that's actually in the middle of Machzorim. If you look, you'll see that they have like a picture of a boy opening the door with Mashiach and Dishrei Hamas. So that's where it comes from. So now that we know that this is not always, Jews have not always been saying this, let's now go into the meaning of the actual verses. Let's understand first the classic commentaries. How do we understand these statements? And then, of course, we're going to talk about how we should deal with them today, number 1. And number 2, I want to continue something I started discussing last week, which is the night of God's protection, and how this directly ties in to the concept of Leil Shemurim, the night of protection, the night of guarding. Okay? Were you here last week?
Yeah.
So, but you forgot.
This
Yeah.
was during a time that Jews were being super awesome.
I'm going to talk about that.
Inquisition.
So I'll say now, I was going to talk about it, but yeah, so Saul is correct. The 1200s in medieval France, and it was a terrible, terrible, terrible time for the Jews. This is the time of the Crusades, which, if you know the history of the Crusades, the righteous, Christians going to redeem the Holy Land from the Muslims. And on the way somehow, even though the Jews seemingly had nothing to do with it, somehow we were the more Jews were killed on the way to, I think only one, if I remember the history correctly. I think there were 5 crusades, if I remember correctly, something like that. I think only one of them even made it to Israel. The other ones didn't even make it. They started and they got a little sidetracked on the way, killing Jews all along the Rhineland and all along the journey from Germany and from England, heading towards Israel. On the way, they stopped at community after community, killing many, many tens upon hundreds of thousands of Jews were killed during these periods of the different crusades. You have the Cossacks, many, many different. No, that was later. But the crusade was a very, very terrible time. The blood libel. You have these bad time for the Jews. Well, Spain. That's incorrect. That's the Inquisition was already around them. So 1492 is the expulsion, but the Inquisition actually started a good 100, 150 years before the expulsion. It was a very, very bad time. So yes, you are correct that these verses started not at the beginning of our Exodus, not when we came into the land of Israel and things were good for us, not when the Jews were living in the times of the Babylonian Talmud, when the Jews were living in this era of more or less prosperity and peace and calm, and things were, generally speaking, it was a good time for the Jews, which is why scholarship flourished, etc. But these verses were written at a time of tremendous persecution for the Jews. And this was the answer of the Jewish people to the persecution that they were suffering with, which was, God, pour your wrath upon these nations that do not know you. And we're going to talk about them opening the door when they said these verses. I was already talking about it. One of the classic explanations given, why do they say this with the door open? It's kind of funny. What are you saying? What are we saying in this? Pour your wrath on the nation. So that's a good time to go open the door, make sure they hear you, right? Open the door. So some explain that the opening of the door was we wanted to show our Christian neighbors we were not killing any Christian children inside. We were always accused, and there were many, many, many stories of many communities and many times with blood libels. We talked last of the story of the birth of Rabbi Yehuda Loa Prague. He was in the 14th century, where they were planting a dead body of a Christian child on his father on the property of the rabbi during the Seder. And so that there was a night of terrible persecution when there was, so we opened the doors to show the Christians, to show our neighbors, look, you can look inside. We have nothing to hide. There's no dead bodies, there's no blood, there's no, so that's a classic explanation. But let's go through these verses, okay? The first verse begins, and now you have it in front of you. Pour out your wrath upon who? The nations that do not know you. This is a very important statement, number one. We're not asking God to pour out his wrath on everyone that's not like us. It's not kill all the nations, kill all the goyim. That's not what it says. It's a specific person that needs to be destroyed. Those who do not know you. Now, I should just clarify, in case it's not obvious, when it says they don't know you, it's not because they're ignorant. There's two kinds of not knowing. There's some not knowing because, I don't know. You asked me about geometry. I don't know. I don't know. I never said geometry. It's not my area of expertise. Some not knowing is I made a choice not to know. If you ask me about Michael Jackson, I don't know. Not because I don't know on purpose. I don't know. It's deliberate. I don't know. So when the nations don't know God, it's not because they never heard of God before. They never heard of the Jewish people. It's because they chose not to know. They refused to know. It's not innocent ignorance, it's rebellion. It's a world that, like today, does not want to know about God. So there's there's people that don't know about God. They don't want to know about God. They refuse to know about God. They deny God's existence. Not only do they deny God's existence, what else do they do? What does the verse say next? Pour out your wrath upon the nations that do not know you, upon the kingdoms that refuse to call your name, that refuse to acknowledge your existence. Why? Since they have consumed Yaakov, they have consumed Jacob, and laid waste his habitation. We'll get to that word habitation in a second. But notice the language of ki achal es Yaakov. Ki achal means they ate, or they consumed, as it translates it over here. It's not that they disagree with the Jewish people, or they don't like the Jewish people. It says They ate them. They devoured them. Now, when I was studying the book of Yirmiyahu last week, the book of Jeremiah, where Jeremiah says the exact same words, Shvoch, Hamas, Chalagoim, he says exact same things. He's saying to God, God, you're angry with the Jewish people. Pour out your wrath upon the nations instead. Because they have eaten Yaakov, and then he adds two more words. Achluhu, they have eaten him. Yichalu, and they have completely devoured him. There's nothing left. Meaning the desire of the nations is not just to crush the Jewish spirit, or it's to destroy us entirely, to annihilate us, to obliterate us. To just give very contemporary language, it's not that they don't believe that should be two states living in coexistence. Today, anti-Semites say there should be from the river to the sea, which in simple geographical English means no Israel, obliteration. Ki achal es Yaakov. These words are extremely, extremely relevant today. They don't just say, I don't like Jews. They want to consume the Jewish people, and as Jeremiah adds, Vayichalu, to completely consume them, to obliterate them. There should be no Jews left living on the planet. If you would see the hate that I got on my Facebook page yesterday after I posted about Moshe Katz, the Chabad boy that was 22 years old, that was killed in Lebanon 2 days ago. Hundreds of messages. Hundreds. I didn't even see till like midnight. I came home and my brother-in-law sends me a text message. He's like, how do you get so many haters on your page? Literally, it's crazy. The one from Connecticut. So I posted on my Facebook page a video. I posted twice about him when he passed away. And then I posted 2 videos. One from 28 days ago when he became a paratrooper. Became a paratrooper 28 days ago. And there's a very beautiful video. Surrounded by all his friends, and they're singing, and his father's there. And they take off whatever, the green beret, and they put on the purple beret. So you see that video, and then you see a video of all of his friends standing around his coffin singing Ani Mamin. I believe the perfect faith in the coming of Mashiach. These 2 videos. So I wrote, 28 days later, he's still surrounded by his friends. There was 430 at midnight last night when I looked at I didn't look for all day. I was in the hospital, someone passed away. I coached for the kitchen. I went to Farbrengen, it was the Rebbe's birthday. I get home like at 12 o'clock at night. 430 messages. Comments, comments on the, I didn't look at it today, whatever. It's no, I was deleting them. So I was really, really tired. And I don't care for me, but on the other hand, it's like, this is the memory of a hero of the Jewish people that's being desecrated. I deleted a lot of it. I'm getting a little distracted. The point is, they want to destroy us. They want to destroy us, meaning that if a Jewish person dies, they're happy. They're laughing. Good riddance. Give us more good. I wrote heartbreaking, and a few more. Not heartbreaking. Uplifting. Good. Heart raising. Good news. Thanks for sharing the good news. Seriously, sick. But the point is, when it says in the verse in Tehillim, and when Jeremiah says, "Ki yachalas Yaakov," that they have consumed Yaakov, it's not just that they don't like Jewish people. It's not just that they're fighting for the oppressed Palestinian cause. No. They want to absolutely obliterate and to completely annihilate us, to consume us, that we don't exist. And it continues, V'yesnaveyu heishamu, which is translated here as they have laid waste to his habitation. But the commentaries explain, the Radak explains, that Navehu is also a reference to the place where the Jewish people served Hashem. Where is the house where the Jewish people served God? Temple Mount, Beit HaMikdash. Meaning, in other words, where the enemies of Israel are attacking is not just us as a people and trying to annihilate the Jewish people. They're trying to destroy Navehu, the place where God was found, where God was present. They're trying to destroy the place of the whole Jewish place of worship, to attack God. They deny God's existence and they want to fight against them. And so therefore we're asking for Hashem to pour out his wrath and to express judgment upon those who set themselves against God, and against God's people. Okay.
Whose face of people that watch those videos,
Yeah.
watch this week's class, they should stand your ground state.
You know, to stand your guard state. Stand your ground. Yeah.
If anybody walks in your home, you can kill them.
As long as it's not illegal.
Yeah, if it's illegal, don't kill them. Okay. Let's go to the next. What's the next verse? Yeah, but they're not watching. They're not watching my class.
Marsha, don't use those words, don't put those vibes in the universe.
Yeah, you don't put those. But don't worry. You know what? Let them watch my class. You'd have to watch a whole class to get to knowing that the door is open. I'm not afraid. I have a guard sleeping by the front of the development. It's being sarcastic. I'm not afraid. And by the way, I'll say it on record, because I'm not afraid, my front door will be unlocked on Pesach night, and it'll be just fine. Okay. Now, back to the story at hand. The next verse. What's the next verse? Also from Tehillim, chapter 69. Shvoich aleim za'amecha, pour upon them your fury, and let the fierceness of your anger, O God, overtake them. Meaning, what has to happen to these people? We have to destroy them. God, not someday in theory, God do something not nice to them. Let justice catch up to them. Let accountability come to them. And God, they want to destroy us. God, pour out your wrath upon them, and let your anger, the fierceness of your anger, overtake them and destroy them. Not just destroy them. The next verse says, pursue them in anger. Tirdev ba'af. Pursue them in anger. This is from Eicha. I'll share it one more time. For those who are watching my personal page, you can see it. Now you also have the copies in front of you. The third set of verses. Tirdev ba'af atashmidem. Pursue them in anger and destroy them from under the heavens of the Lord. What does it mean to be destroyed from under the heavens of the Lord? That they have no lasting remembrance. Like Haman. Well, what do you do about Haman? What's Haman's punishment? What's Haman's punishment? His name should be blotted out, right? His whole family. Amalek. We have a mitzvah to destroy the memory of Amalek. So that's what we're asking God to do to those that refuse to know God. Those that are actively trying to destroy and consume and annihilate the people of God. Those who are trying to destroy the house of God. They should be overwhelmed with God's anger. They should be destroyed. They shouldn't exist under the heavens. There should be no memory left of them. There should be no memory left of them. Okay. Very, very strong, but we understand the verses. So what's the emotion here? What when the rabbis tell us to say these verses when we open the door, what are we meant to be feeling when we say these verses? What are we meant to feel? Anger? Is that what it's saying? Do you see anger here? Faith. What do you feel? Before I tell you what I feel from these verses. Pride. Justice. Justice. This is justice. Meaning there are people that are trying to destroy the nation of God, and yet the Jews still call it his name. Notice the other Jews also sin. Jews also arouse God's anger. In fact, what Jeremiah is saying to God is, even though the Jews have sinned, don't be angry with the Jews. Instead, put your anger on the nations. Why? Because they don't call your name. A Jew, even if he's a sinner, will still call out to God. I can show you many Jews who will tell you, I'm a terrible Jew. I'm a bad Jew, Rabbi. But I still talk to God. Right? You know such a people? Especially when they go to jail, whatever. Yeah, that's also because in jail they have, but I'm saying it's true. When the person goes through a crisis, whether it's a health crisis or a life crisis like being in jail, yeah, you wake up and obviously like, what am I doing in my life? Yeah. When life is good, it's easier to forget a little bit. When your life gets turned upside down. But yes, Jews, even when they sin, are still connected to God. These other nations that sin, they're not just sinning that they're doing something wrong. They're deliberately choosing to ignore the fact that God exists, and they're deliberately trying to destroy him. And so, number one message over here is we're asking God for justice. It's not anger. There's no anger. We're not saying I'm going to do anything. There's no God, I'm going to go, let me go kill them, let me go shoot them, let me go beat them up. We're sitting in our homes and asking God to show his justice and to give anger to those who deserve it. So it's not an angry thing. It's a sense of, God, we're trusting you to do the right, moral, just thing. And the second thing I take from here is that in order to come to Mashiach, in order to reach a state of holiness, you need to have clarity. This is something I've talked about many times, but it's right here in the Haggadah. Softness, people confuse compassion with holiness. And holiness is not about compassion. Sometimes, yes, sometimes a holy person will feel compassion to those who might not deserve it, etc., 100%. But sometimes holiness demands accountability. Very excellent word. Holiness demands justice. It demands fair. It demands destruction of evil. And as there's a famous statement of the Talmud, that those who are compassionate upon the wicked will end up being wicked to the compassionate. Or cruel. Those who are compassionate to the cruel end up being cruel to the compassionate. Those who are compassionate to the cruel will end up being cruel to those who are compassionate. It's like when you're compassionate, not like, it is, when you are compassionate to a criminal and you say, well, we don't want to make you go to jail, we want to be nice to you. What ends up happening? Those criminals that are out on bail and out on these ridiculous sentences end up hurting, killing, raping, murdering innocent, compassionate people who did nothing wrong, because there was a murderer that they hadn't been a murderer yet, but they were already proven criminals, proven violent, dangerous people that had already been in prison and were released.
It was like all these people that sympathize with Hamas. If Hamas were here, they would, in front of the
Correct.
people, they would
Kill them.
in 1 second.
Correct.
All these,
Especially people that feel the need for compassion because they're marginalized groups, like LGBTQ groups, for example, who feel like, oh, us and Hamas are in the same bed because we're both marginalized, oppressed minorities in their mind. And they don't realize the ridiculousness of being, LGBT for... Correct. I saw a cute meme, like you saw some LGBT guy marching for Hamas, and you see a chicken marching for KFC. Like, the chicken saying, I stand for KFC. That's whatever. So it's the truth. But why? So what happens? Why do they get there? Because they think we have to be compassionate. And this is not just about people that are idiots. There's a lot of Jews that think that Jewish values is to be compassionate. And while it's true that Judaism talks a lot about compassion, to turn compassion into an absolute be-all, end-all way of living life is not holiness. And it's not Judaism. Judaism is a rich code for living life that has many dimensions to it. It's not a black or white, all or nothing compassion.
There it is, it's
It's
a rich code of how to live life.
a rich code of how to live life.
And that's what most uninformed Jews don't understand.
I agree with you completely. I mean, I just said it, but yes. Most uninformed Jews think Judaism is very simplistic because their Jewish education ended at the age of 13. And at that time, I was memorizing a Hebrew Haftorah.
Even those 13 years didn't even explain that it's a code of how to live life.
Right, correct. But if you're going, especially in a non-religious environment, and part of it is about just religious doctrine, a ceremony where you got to learn a Haftorah in heart by in a language you understand, and part of it's reading Hebrew. So yeah, how much more are you going to learn? Yeah, some beautiful messages, love your neighbor like yourself, and which are beautiful ideas, and they're Jewish ideas, but that's not the entirety of Judaism by any stretch of the imagination. So what I take from these verses is at the moment that we're coming to sort of say the climax and the height of the Seder experience, we spent hours reliving the Exodus. We spent hours talking about the plagues and the splitting of the sea, and now we ate the matzah, we ate the maror, we drank the wine, we did the whole experience of who we were. And now we're getting ready to experience the future. That's what we talked about at great length last week. The whole opening of the door for Elijah the prophet is getting ready to experience the future. You can't experience the future if you don't have clarity in what is right and what is wrong. Redemption requires us to purify the world, ourselves and the world. And you can't purify something if you don't know what's the pure and what's the impure. When you purify silver, and I'm not an expert silversmith, but I know from the examples given in the Chassidus, so you take the silver, you heat it up in the fire, and you separate the dross from the silver to refine the silver. There's an art to it. You have to know exactly how much, how you're sifting it and filtering it, etc. You can't throw it all out, and you can't leave it all. You have to figure it out. There's an art. So, this is the idea for us. We have to, number one, have complete, there's no anger here. So there's trust in Hashem, there's trust in God's justice and God's faith in God's justice, and also a moment of clarity. And freedom, this is very much connected to the highlight of the freedom. Part of our freedom is to be able to be true and to be able to say what is holy, what is not holy, what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is evil. Which brings us now back to the opening of the door. Why do we open the door when we say these verses? So, of course, technical, there's different reasons. A, we have to go get bored, we got to stretch our legs. And as I said last week, it's a beautiful act of faith showing that we're getting ready for Mashiach and that Elijah is coming. Some say we want to show the Christians we're not doing anything wrong. But why these verses connected to the opening of the door? Seemingly, it's two different things. It's opening of the door for Eliyahu Navi. I was asking for punishment of the nations. They don't seem to be connected to each other. They are. But so what does the Alter Rebbe write? If you remember last week, we quoted from the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. And we talked about the opening of the door. And I want to read again from the same Jewish law, but we're going to now start 3 lines of earlier than we started last week, okay? So the Alter Rebbe writes, I'm quoting, it's here in English, this is from the Code of Jewish Law. It is customary to recite the verse. I'm not sharing my screen. One second. Let me just share my screen for those watching on my personal page. Here we go. From the Alter Rebbe's Code of Jewish Law, chapter 480. It is customary to recite the verse at the beginning, Shvo Chamascha, pour out your wrath, before beginning the rest of the Hallel, which is Lo Lanu. The door is opened to recall that it is a night of protection, and we do not fear anything. In the merit of this faith, Mashiach will come, and the Holy One, blessed be He, will pour out His wrath on the nations. In some places, and here's what we read last week, it is customary not to lock the rooms when people sleep on the night of Pesach, since it is a night of protection for the children of Israel for all generations, a time for God to redeem them from this exile. Eliyahu, Elijah the prophet, will come. He will find an open door, and we will speedily go out and greet him. We believe in this promise, and this faith brings with it a great reward, etc. Okay? Now, it's a beautiful idea. Let's go deeper into this idea that's a night of guarding. Last week we started talking about it, and I saw how difficult it was for some Americans who think that we need external security to feel safe. So let's talk about this. What's the source of the idea that the night of Pesach is a night of guarding? It's a verse in Shmos, in the book of Exodus. Look at text number 5, chapter 12 of the book of Exodus, verse 42. It's at the very end, after the death of the firstborn, etc. God says, Leil Shimurim Hu LaHashem. That was for the Lord a night of vigil to bring them out of the land of Egypt, a night of guarding to bring them out of the land of Egypt. Hu Halayla Hazeh LaHashem. That same night is the night of Hashem, one of Shimurim, one of guarding for all of the children of Israel throughout the ages. Meaning, it's clear, it's black and white in the Bible, that this night of guarding is not just once upon the time, 3,300 years ago, God guarded the Jewish people. Rather, what is it saying black and white in the verse? This night that was a night of guarding to bring them out of Egypt, this is the night to God. Shimurim l'chol b'nei Yisrael l'deiresim. It is being guarded for all the children of Israel throughout the ages. And in fact, it's late because I myself have a beautiful story to share with you. The Gemara, some Sachim, the Gemara Rosh Hashanah. You have a different text, and I changed it. This is the old version. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, page 11a says, Rabbi Yeshua says, in the month of Nisan, the Jewish people were redeemed, and in the month of Nisan, we will be redeemed. In Nisan we were redeemed. And in the month of Nisan, we are destined to be redeemed in the future. And he says, from where do we derive that the final redemption will be in Nisan? The verse states, Leil Shemurim Hu LaHashem. It is a night of watching for the Lord, or for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is the Lord's night of watching for all the children of Israel throughout their generations. This teaches that the night of Passover is a night that has been continuously watched, meaning set aside for the purpose of redemption from the 6 days of creation. And so it will be until the final redemption. I mentioned this last week. The reason why we celebrate Pesach on the 15th night of Nisan is not because 3,300 years ago, our ancestors were saved from Egypt that night. That night was already a holy night before the Exodus. Let me just clarify what I'm saying. The Exodus happened on the 15th night of Nisan because that's a night of guarding from the beginning of creation. God already created a divine protection for the Jewish people. Within the very fabric of creation, God created a day of protection in the month of protection, in the month of miracles, called the night of the Exodus, the night of the 15th, which is when the moon is fullest, etc. And that's why it was on that night that first on that night that God sent angels to Avraham. It's actually on that night that God made the covenant of the parts. The Bris Ben Habsarim happened on the night of Pesach. So the night of Pesach, the angels came and said to Avraham, you're going to have a child, miraculously. So the night of Pesach, that Yitzchak was born, and on the night of Pesach, the Jewish people were out of Egypt. Because that's the night already from the beginning of creation that contains within it the energy of divine protection. So therefore, my friends, we see over here the number one, a Jew has to act in the way of faith, in the way of emunah, recognizing that God is guarding us, not because I locked my door, I set my alarm or whatever, but because Hashem's guarding us. And tonight is a night where the very fabric of creation has God's protection woven into the very entity, the very DNA of time. And secondly, because now is when God is guarding us, now is the perfect time for me to say to God, those enemies that deny you, those enemies that are trying to destroy us, now is a time when you should destroy them. Now is a time when you should destroy them. And when a Jew has that emunah, when a Jew has that faith, which is exactly the Alter Rebbe is writing in the Code of Jewish Law that we read a few minutes ago, when a Jew will have that faith, to be able to open his door, even when he's living in the times of the Crusades, even when he's living in the time of the anti-Semitism of today, and the Jew is able to feel confident that his protection comes from God, and that the destruction of our enemies comes from God, that is the faith that leads to the coming of Eliyahu Hanavi to tell us that Mashiach is coming. Meaning the coming of Mashiach is directly tied into how much we believe, really believe, not just how much we say, but how much we truly believe that God is watching over us and God is going to be the one to defend us and protect us and to bring us the ultimate redemption. That's what we're waiting for. And that's why this night is night of guarding. It's a night of protection. So far, good? Then I saw something absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. From the Ramban. Ramban is Nachmanides. Same time as Rashi, etc. He writes something beautiful on this verse that it's a night of guarding. The classic understanding is who's guarding? Who's doing the guarding? Hashem is guarding for us. He's protecting us. He's watching over us. He's making sure we're safe. And as I just explained, so when we have faith in Hashem's guarding, that leads to the opening, and we open our doors, because we don't just believe, but we act on our belief, then that brings to God bringing Eliyahu, bringing Elijah the prophet, as Mashiach is coming. But the Ramban says it even more strongly, more explicitly, more beautifully. Says the Ramban on that verse in the book of Exodus, verse 42, he says that this night of guarding, which was watched by Hashem to bring the Jews out of Egypt, it's consecrated to Hashem. That's what it says. but it also means that the Jewish people need to watch it for Hashem. Who's watching it? Who's guarding the night? We are guarding the night. This means that we should watch it and serve Him by eating the Pesach offering, and by remembering the miracles, and by saying the Hallel, saying the songs of praise, etc. When we do that, we are guarding the day to bring forth the holiness and the protection of God that exists in the day. Meaning, there's a certain divine energy to Pesach that's irrelevant of what we do or don't do. On the 15th night of the month of Nisan, which is a Wednesday night, there's an inherent and intense divine energy that's prevalent and revealed in the world. Whether or not we're celebrating Pesach or not, whether or not we're eating matzah or not, whether or not we open our doors or not, inherent in creation, interwoven into the very fabric of existence from the 6 days of creation, and for every year ever since, on the 15th of the month of Nisan, this year, Wednesday night, after it gets dark, not before, after it gets dark, is a time of unbelievable divine protection. And that's going to happen regardless. But if we want to take it to the next step, and in order to make it not just a night of divine protection, but to make it a night of future redemption as well, you know what that requires of us? That we need to guard the night for Hashem. Meaning, we need to do our part to believe, to act with a guarding that this is the night that not only we were redeemed in the past, but the night that we will be redeemed. And by our guarding this faith of a Jew, like you see at the funeral of Moshe Katz, that at the funeral, what are they singing? Ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin. They're saying, I believe. Be'emunah shelema, with complete, perfect faith. Be'viyas HaMashiach, I believe in the coming of Mashiach. That's a Jew guarding the faith that a Jew needs to have in order to bring redemption to the world. So now it makes sense. When we open up the doors and we're expressing our belief in Hashem bringing redemption, what is inherently part of God bringing redemption to the world? The destruction of our enemies. Not just our enemies, the destruction of the enemies of God. The destruction of those who have destroyed the people of God, who have destroyed the house of God, who deny God, who don't know God on purpose, they don't know God. And in order for Mashiach to come, we have to eradicate, not us, God is going to do it, but God is going to eradicate and destroy the evil that exists in the world. It sounds beautiful. It's very beautiful. And so last week, we talked about opening the door for Eliyahu Navi. What were we talking about? That a Jew needs to act on the faith that a Jew needs to have, and not just to say Mashiach is coming, but to open the door. Now, we're saying a whole nother level of inner awareness. Not just we need to open the door to act on the faith that God is going to bring Mashiach, but together with that is knowing that God, having the clarity and the moral compass to be able to recognize what is right and what is wrong, and having trust and faith in Hashem that even when the darkness seems to be overwhelming, and even when it seems that our enemies are stronger and louder and more powerful, etc., but having absolute faith that Hashem will not let them endure, that Hashem will not allow that to remain, that Hashem will destroy those who try to destroy His people. Yeah? I'll tell you a story about Leil Shimurim. A story about Leil Shimurim. So I told you last week one story about how God protects us on the night of Leil Shimurim, on the story of the Yehuda of Lo being born. So another very beautiful, famous story, but it's not so well known in details, and it's a very, very beautiful story. Brings us this idea. One of the many stories, but this is the one I chose. I wanted to share with you. The Baal Shem Tov had a very, very strong desire to travel to Israel and to meet there with another great Kabbalist, Reb Chaim Ibn Attar. And he felt, Baal Shem Tov knew, that if these two holy people will be able to unite together, they will be able to force God, so to say, to bring Mashiach. And for years, this was like the Baal Shem Tov's dream. He wanted to go to Israel. He knew about this very, very holy man, Reb Chaim Ibn Attar. And for whatever reason, he never could go. So finally, and he knew there was many obstacles. God was not letting him go. So eventually he decided, I don't care what's going to happen. I'm going to make the trip to Israel to go to be together with this Kabbalist, and together we're going to force God to bring Mashiach. This is a historical story that, if I'm not mistaken, happened more than once. They tried, and many things happened on the way. And there's many variations to the story. I was listening to one today with want to get all the details, and I heard one from Breslau. Different variations, different. But the gist of the story is, he took his daughter Adel. Moshe had a daughter Adel, and his closest student, and began the journey. And they were coming, and they were going towards Istanbul to get to Israel. To get to from he lived in Mezhebush. Mezhebush is in what's Ukraine. So if you know geography, you get from Ukraine, go through into Turkey. So he came to Constantinople literally on the day before Pesach, the Erev Pesach. They had no money. According to the way I know the story, is that they were on a ship, and the ship stopped at Constantinople to get supplies, and the captain tricked them. The captain said, we're going to fix the ship, it's going to take a few hours or whatever, a day. And then when the people got off the ship, the captain left dock, and he screwed them, and he whatever. Obviously, he traveled by land to get to the port of Constantinople to get the last. Either way, he came to Constantinople. Nobody knew who Baal Shem Tov was. Nobody had heard of him there. Different variations. He lost his memory. There are many different parts of the story, the different challenges Baal Shem Tov faced on the way to get there. But the point is, it's the day of Pesach. They're staying they found a room somewhere, a base, whatever, and they had no food, no wine, no matzah, nothing. How are they going to celebrate Pesach? So her father, Baal Shem Tov, is going to go to Shul. And Adel, she had nothing to cook. She had nothing to do. And what is a Jewish woman at Erev Pesach? You're sitting home with your hands crossed because you have no food to cook. Like it doesn't feel right. So she took her father's clothing to at least go to the river to go wash his clothing, at least have clean clothing for the Chag. If nothing else, no food, at least clean clothing. She's by the riverside. She's washing her father's clothing, and some rich Polish man came. Some say he knew that Baal Shem Tov was there. He was looking for the Baal Shem Tov because he didn't have a blessing for children. He knew many stories of miracles. And the Baal Shem, he finds out where the Baal Shem Tov is. He sees the Baal Shem Tov's daughter. And he invites them to his hotel where he was staying. He was staying in the Taj Mahal, and he was a very wealthy man. And they come to this. So her father comes home from Shul. Instead of coming to this little wherever, his dad says, come, we're going to go to this place for the Seder. We're staying over here. They come as a Seder set, magnificent food, wine, matzah, everything. Sit down, they start the Seder. Some say that Baal Shem was asleep at one point, others he was sitting at the table. When it came towards the end of the Seder, after we say, pour your wrath upon the enemies, so we say the Hallel. And in the Hallel is a line, which in English means, we're giving praise to God who does wonders, who does miracles, great things. Levante, all alone, because his kindness is forever. It's one of the 26 statements of God's kindness. But this one that he does on his own, without any help. He does wonders and miracles on his own. And the Baal Shem Tov, the way I know this was as a kid, the Baal Shem wasn't asleep, he was lying down. And they had to go wake him up. And they saw in his sleep, he was murmuring these verses over and over. I heard it today. The Baal Shem was sitting at the Seder table, loud, in a very loud voice, in the state of dveikus, in the state of ecstasy, like he was in another world, sitting there, but in another world. Either way, the Baal Shem Tov spent hours on the night of Pesach. He's saying this verse over and over and over. And no one knew what was going on. People didn't know Baal Shem Tov was a holy man, and they left him alone. In the morning, they come to Shul, and they found out what happened. In Constantinople, there was a new sultan. The previous sultan, been friendly to the Jews for many years, had passed away. Now, I'm sure you can figure out the years exactly. I don't know what year, but the previous sultan had passed away. He had been much more friendly to the Jews. And his son was a real Rasha who hated the Jews and had his young advisors that were these anti-Semites were convincing him to do something to destroy the Jewish people. And so he decided Pesach is the best time. All the Jews will be in the synagogue. They can't do anything. They'll all be gathered. And so on the advice of his friends, he wrote a decree that was going to be published on the morning of Pesach, telling all of the non-Jews they have permission on the holiday for maybe blood libel, the Jews kill Christian blood, whatever. Pesach was always the day that the non-Jews tried to kill the Jews, to be able to go and to kill all the Jews in Constantinople. Now, one of the advisors, the old advisors of the previous sultan, knew that this decree was coming. It was a secret. It hadn't publicly passed. But he knew that it was written and it was going to happen. And he knew the king wouldn't listen to him. He tried, and the king didn't listen. And he didn't know what to do, but it's not him, whatever. Anyway, that night, the king's advisor, the old sultan's advisor, couldn't sleep. He knows the Jews are having their Seder, and he knows that the next morning they're going to go to synagogue, and they're going to be killed. They're going to be killed in the synagogues. The crowd will be riled up, and there'll be a mass wave of Christians coming, and the Jews will have no chance to defend themselves or do anything. They'll be killed. So he decides he can't allow his conscience to remain silent. And even though he was home in his bed at night, late at night, he decides he has to go tell the Jewish community. And so he goes to the house of the rabbi of Constantinople, who was by his Seder, and his non-Jewish advisor comes to the rabbi and says to him, I'm sorry to disturb you, but I want you to know that tomorrow there's a decree going to be passed early in the morning, and all the Christians are gathering, whatever, not what's the Christian, whatever's in, but all the non-Jews will be gathering on their day to come and kill you. I'm letting you know. I don't know what you can do about it, but I'm letting you know. At least you have a chance to prepare yourself. So the rabbi is sitting thinking, what am I going to do? So he had an idea. He's going to go to the queen, the mother of the new sultan, the wife of the previous sultan, who had been very friendly to the Jewish people and been very close to the Jewish community. And so even though it's in the middle of the night, it's Pesach night, in the middle of the night, he goes to where the queen lives. And the guards want to let the rabbi in. It's the middle of the night. I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. And the rabbi says, I'm not leaving until I see the queen. And he's outside and he's screaming and he's shouting and they're banging. And eventually the queen wakes up and she hears a commotion outside her house or her front door. She goes and the guards tell her that there's the rabbi to see you. She says, let him come in. And the rabbi comes in and says, I can't tell you how I know. He was sworn. The rabbi was sworn to secrecy from this advisor. So I can't tell you how I know, but I know that your son has a decree waiting to be published first thing in the morning to kill all the Jews tomorrow. You must help us. And the queen says, I'm going to help you. Stay here. Wait for me in my house. I'm going to go right now to my son. What are you going to do? She said, I don't know. You can't say how you know. It's a secret. Can't get back to the advice. She said, I'll figure out. On the way I'll figure out a plan. She comes to the palace where her son is sleeping, and she tells the guards, and you must wake up my son right away. So the mother is there. So the guards go and they wake up the king, the sultan. He sees his mother in the middle of the night, came in her pajamas. So what happened? Are you okay? She's like, tell me right now. Did you do something terrible that's going to happen tomorrow that will cause our family to be destroyed? So what are you talking about? She said, I couldn't sleep. Your father is coming to me in a dream and telling me that my son, you, are about to do something that will cause our family to be destroyed and that soon there'll be no one left from our family if you are allowed to do what you're planning to do. So tell me, what are you planning to do that's going to bring destruction upon our family, that your father to come back from heaven to wake me up to stop you from doing this? So he tells his mother, smart woman. So he tells his mother, I have a decree that tomorrow morning is going to be to kill the Jews. She said, are you crazy? Don't you know the stories in history of people that fought against the Jews and were killed? You never heard of Pharaoh? You never heard of Haman? You never heard of you don't know what happened? That's why your father was coming to me. She didn't say, I know about the Jews. That's why your father was coming to me. Because you're going to do something that will cause our entire family to be destroyed. Promise me right now you're going to destroy this decree. And he was all shooken up that his father came in a dream to his mother. So he went right there. He got the papers. In front of his mother, he ripped up the decree that was never passed. She comes back, tells the rabbi it's okay. And that's when the Baal Shem Tov finished saying, the whole time was saying, that all night, this is the story they found in the morning in the shul. They found out this guy, this Polish Jew, all night Hashem was sitting and saying, does miracles alone. There's no army, there's no war, the miracle happened. Barely anybody even knew there's a miracle happening. God alone did the miracle. Kili Olam Chasta. And that was the miracle. One of the many stories of miracles that happened to us, where entire communities were saved on the night of Pesach. Anyway, the point is, Pesach is not just a night when Hashem guards the Jewish people. It's a night when we have to guard the honor of Hashem. That's what the Ramban is saying. It's a Leil Shimurim, a night of guarding, a night when we have to guard the glory and the honor of Hashem. Which means that if we want to truly bring Mashiach, and we want to truly make the world a holy, beautiful home for God, a place of peace, a place of love, a place of kindness, a place where God's Shekhinah can be revealed to the world, you know what we need to do? We need to stand up proud and clear with absolute clarity and conviction, and to say, evil is evil, evil must be destroyed. God, we're waiting. We understand, God, that you're in charge. God, we're waiting for you. Pour out your wrath upon those that don't know you, upon those that are fighting against you, those that want to obliterate your people. And we say that with the door open. We don't say that in secret. We don't say it hiding like in some language. We say it with the door open because we know God is watching over us. And when God is watching over us, then God, and we watch over him, that's when Eliyahu Hanavi comes. And that's when the Pesach Seder is not just a remembrance of the miracles that have happened to us in the past, but the Pesach Seder becomes practice. And this should not just practice, this will be the actual moment we can finally, once and for all, welcome in Mashiach, our righteous Redeemer, and to experience not just the miracles that happened until now, but to experience the much, much greater miracles, the much more powerful miracles that are, God willing, going to happen very, very, very soon. Good night, my friends. Shavuot Tov, everyone watching. Shavuot Tov, Carmen from Texas. Alice, anticipating the Geula in Baltimore. That's right, and all over the universe. I am with you, Alice. Good evening, Nancy. Good evening, Linda. Amen, amen, amen. Good evening, Linda. Hello, Luis. How are you? Hello, Ella. Shira, how are you feeling? How are you? Hello, Andrea. Hello, Corinne. Another Corinne Lindenberg. Hello, Cheryl. Hello, Laura. Hello, Luis. Hello, Anna, Ray. Hello, Heidi. All the way from Holiday, Florida. That's the coolest name. Okay, my friends. Next Monday is obviously no class. It's Pesach. So there won't be any class next Monday, but the Monday after that, B'ezrat Hashem. And coming up on April 19th is the Holocaust speaker. I see, Saul, you forgot to remind me. Saul knows one that reminds me. April 19th will be Bar Cooperstein will be celebrating with us, and then April 21st is the next JLI course for all humankind. If you want to be able to verbalize what we said tonight to your non-Jewish neighbors, you need to come to the class starting April 21st. Okay, my friends. mychabadcenter.org/JLI if you want to sign up for the next JLI course. Again, mychabadcenter.org/JLI. mychabadcenter.org. Not .com, .org. Shalom, Dana. Shalom, everyone. Have a kosher, freilich, and a zisen Pesach, a healthy Pesach, a beautiful Pesach, for good things. Good night, David. Okay.